my presentation on the 1% or 1%. The world is full of problems. Famine is happening as we speak. And some famine, lack of food and water, is insoluble, at least in the short term. It's to do with political, military conflicts and disasters, natural disasters, weather, the environment. What I'm interested in is the famine that we can address, that can be solved. There are people who are starving to death as I record this and as you watch this. And I would respectfully suggest this is the world's #1 priority. I mean, if our fellow men and women and children are dying from want of food and food can be got to them, shouldn't we put that at the head of all our personal and corporate and government and international priorities? That's what I suggest. Let's sort that problem first and then deal with all the other many problems in the world. Now, happily, the World Food Programme comes to the rescue on this. They know what to do and they are feeding people who are victims of this avoidable famine, even as we speak. The problem is underfunding. This graphic shows that they are underfunded every year to the tune of perhaps a third, sometimes more than a third. I understand at the moment, here in early 2024, that the underfunding is even worse than that. Here's an example just of a recent story of how underfunding is putting operations in a particular African country, Chad, at risk. And there are more and more stories like that on the UN website. Here's the answer, I would suggest. It's the 1%, or in this case, it's the 1 cent. We've heard of the 1% in that expression referring to the very rich people who own a lot of the world's resources. Well, nothing I'm going to say or do about them now, but it's whether you and I can spare 1% of, say, what's in our wallet or purse right now. Could I go to my wallet or purse or my electronic banking, which is increasingly the case, and just take out 1 penny in every pound, 1 cent in every dollar or euro? Could I spare that? Or if I'm at a restaurant, could I spare 1% of the bill? Or maybe 1% off the cost of my next vacation? Would I really notice it? Just a penny missing, or just 1%, in other words. The point about this 1% idea, as I call it, is that, well, the World Food Programme is already there. It's the biggest aid agency. They know what to do. They are specialists, and I am certainly not. The campaign doesn't need a logo or a badge. It just needs a 1 cent or 1p coin if you must have a logo or a badge. Online giving and apps are already there. There's no need for me or you to invent anything new. It's all in place, just like the World Food Programme. There's no need for an office or an expensive executive. It scarcely has a website, although I have done one. It's not up to much. It costs me a few pounds every month to keep it going. The point is, in this electronic age, there's so much that we can do without having to set up vast international organizations with people flying around on jets. It can be applied to your income. I'm suggesting that you do as I've done and look at your income and say, well, what's 1% of that? Can I make a regular donation of that to the World Food Programme every month? Or a single sum, the amount of money you have to hand, or a transaction such as the purchase of a luxury car or a vacation. When you're doing something nice for yourself, why not do 1% for these other people? The maths is easy, even for me, and the brand is easily typed or written. It's just 1 and percent, or 1% written out in words. Doesn't matter. Not fussed. Here's an example of an app that you can have on your phone, Share the Meal, which you can do, for example, when you're at a restaurant wanting to share the cost that you've just laid out on what is admittedly a luxury at most of the time you go to a restaurant. And here is a humble site of mine, which is very easy to get to, because you just go tinyurl.com/1-per-cent, and there you are, and you can give that through this Just Giving campaign that I've set up. I receive nothing from it. It all goes to the World Food Programme after the standard charges that you get for online giving. So there's just one example of how one can be giving that 1% from one's computer or phone virtually anywhere in the world. What it's not about long-term development. As I said at the beginning, it's not about those political, geopolitical, environmental, military struggles that are causing the short-term famine. I'm not going to go there. I don't understand the problems, and I certainly am not going to solve them. It's not even about the individual horror of starvation or the logistics of addressing it. It is horrible. The World Food Programme's work, they have their work cut out for them, but they know how to do that. I don't. I just want to help somehow. And I think 1% is probably just about as far as I could go, maybe further one day. Here's an example, just a bit of maths here in the United Kingdom, where we have 28 million households with an average income of £38,000 a year. That's £1 trillion a year. So if each household gave 1%, we could get together 10 billion, which is actually more, I think, than the World Food Programme needs from year to year. And that's just the United Kingdom, and that's just private households. Think what happens when the world's billionaires, mega corporations and governments chip in. Sure, they're already giving, but what if we were to make 1% our rule, our ideal, our normal practice, and that 1% became, as it were, common currency? Doing the 1%, look at what's in your wallet or purse, share a luxury like a meal or a vacation. If you receive an inheritance, perhaps receive 1% out of that, or it's only a hundredth of your income each month. Here's an example of somebody with their paycheck. They've looked at their paycheck, £819.40. Well, that's only £8.19. Could you spare that? Could I spare that? That would be the value of the order I would set up with my bank to give to World Food Programme. So there we are. tinyurl.com/1-per-cent. I hope it's a nice, simple idea, and I do hope that you'll be able to respond by giving your 1%.